And we're live. Hi everyone, this is Amateur Gamer, and I'll be returning to AG's Old World tutorial series. We're on tutorial 4, and I will be covering the topic of growth. Now, growth is whenever you select a city, it will be on your top left corner, and here you'll see a fairly simple summary of growth. So basically, you have a certain amount you have to fill up. In this case, we have 100. When our growth reaches 100, our citizen will increase by 1, and it will reset back to 0, and the next citizen will cost more in order to reach that next citizen. And with growth, it's extremely important, but there are a few things you have to know about it. The first thing are the units that use growth. So as you can see here, we have 4 units under growth. We have settler, we have worker, we have scout, we have militia. There are also other units like disciples that use growth. So what does it mean by them needing growth? For example, I just selected settler. You see 8 years, 8 turns. If you look at our growth, it's plus 10. So as you can imagine, 80 divided by 10 is 8. So it takes 8 turns to finish a settler. Now the thing about these units is that since they require growth to be produced, it means that your city is actually not growing. So when you're building a settler or a worker, your city is growing stagnant. And growth is important because you need growth to get citizens, and then you need citizens to get specialists. And without growth, you won't have the tools to get the specialists you need to get more ahead in the game. But the whole point here is not talk about the specialists, but more or less why growth is important and why you shouldn't focus on settlers and workers only. Because if your cities are stagnant, you will experience some consequences, as you can imagine. And growth does have a base value. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this base changes with difficulty or not. So far, the only thing I've noticed with difficulty is the starting amount of resources, so I'm assuming the base doesn't change. Of course, I could be wrong and someone might correct me on that. And other bonuses connected to the capital. Being connected gives you extra growth, and that makes connecting your cities very important. For example, from what I've seen, if you have coastal cities, they are automatically connected. Otherwise, you might need roads, or you might need borders to reach, borders, city connections. I will cover that in the future, but just note that having cities connected to the capital also increases your growth, which you can see here. And there's also certain specialists, like farmers. As you can see in the UI, training farmers. Farmers are one of the specialists you can get. So maybe your decision is to use one of your citizens to create a farmer, and then you use that farmer to increase the growth of your city. So that's how it can work. And specialists are interesting because they give different yields and they require improvements. There's a reason why currently, when you look at my city view, you don't see much of anything else that you don't see if you exit it. Because right now I don't have improvements. But once I have improvements, which, for example, if let's see, so for example, farm, right? As you can see, build farm, and then you get enables farmer. So then you can build a specialist once your farm is completed. But that is something that's that I won't cover for now, but I will cover because specialists are pretty important. And to be honest, I'm still trying to grasp with the various specialists on what to focus, so we will discuss that in due time. What other things can improve growth? We have festivals. So as you can see, on completion you get plus 20 growth and minus 20 discontent. So if you want to grow your cities very quickly, you have festival 1, you have festival 2. I don't know if there's a festival 3. There might be, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Maybe there is, let's see. So okay, there's up to festival 4, which is plus 80 growth and minus 80 discontent. So this will be unlocked later on, and as you can see, these depend on your culture. So initially you're stuck on festival 1, but as you gain more culture in your cities, you're able to grow your cities more and remove more discontent. But for those who are just starting out, just know that festival is your way of dealing with discontent and helping your growth a bit, as long as you're not focusing all the time on settlers, workers, scouts, and or militias. Now, what else would matter? There's also, I believe, rivers. They also give a bonus, and I don't know. So because this is still in development, there are still some information that isn't readily available. I will see if I can find out. I believe rivers also helps with your growth, and then there are improvements. There are certain improvements that will benefit your growth, and they are very specific. For example, actually I don't remember. I don't think. Right, this one, goat. Right, you have goats. You get a pasture, you get plus 1 growth. And there are other things like certain shrines and whatever. So that is something you will have to pay attention to, because depending on the various improvements, you might get different bonuses, and some of them do provide growth. And growth becomes much more important in mid and late game. And I'm saying that. Some people might disagree, but I'm saying that because I feel like early game, you do need to focus on things like worker and settlers, and they cost growth, so odds are your cities aren't going to grow much early on, but eventually you will need specialists to compete with your opponents. Next, there are also certain bonuses that come with the family. That is not always the case. I think it's very, there's specific, because there are so many different families, right? 4 families for each nations. They all have different things. So that is something you have to watch out for. Well, I won't say watch out for, but that is something you should be paying attention to. And there are also certain wonders that would help with your growth. I believe the Hang Garden is one of them. Yep, all cities plus 20% growth. So certain wonders also have that. Actually, we might be able to have a quick look at what gives growth. So Ishtar, plus 1 growth per culture level. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to look at. Now you might not be able to unlock everything when you want it. Wonders will have its own video, and it's interesting. Let's just put it at that. I don't want to go too off tangent. And next, your cities. Once you have a garrison, stronghold, or citadel, you're able to put a governor. And governor, depending on their development, depending on what they have, some of them also give growth bonuses. So that is another key aspect that you can't neglect. I don't know how much control you have over, like, whether or not you could completely control what certain characters will become so that you'll get the governor of your choice. But just know that governors are another option in helping improve your growth. And there's also the matter of penalties. So there are certain penalties you will experience with growth, and one of them, which is readily available here, is discontent, right? It says as your discontent increases, it will reduce growth. So which is, discontent and growth are rather interesting. And I'm saying interesting because the two do impact one another, right? So the thing about discontent is that if you have a lot of citizens, like if you have too many citizens, right, that's usually the cause of having too much growth, and you run out of specialists. Citizens will actually cause discontent if you have too many of them. And one of the ways to fight discontent is through festival. But festival increases growth and reduces discontent. So there is definitely a fine line to walk between how much growth you want to make sure you get your specialists up as soon as possible, and managing your discontent so that you're not growing beyond the size and creating situations where your cities are just very unhappy and you struggle to solve the issue. So for growth, just remember that when you're building settlers, workers, scout, militia, anything that's between growth and training, you use up all the growth so your city is not growing. And early on, it's not a big deal, but later on you do need growth, but you also don't want excessive growth. So there's always a balance, just like everything else in the game. And I believe I more or less touched the tip of the iceberg for growth. There are other things you should probably pay attention to, but those are going to be left for more advanced videos, which I'm not going to cover right now, partially because I'm not ready to talk about more advanced stuff. I still need to do more research personally. But this should be enough to get you started to understand the importance of growth, how to improve growth, what slows it down, and what to watch out for in the early game. Anyways, this is the end of this video. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.